It all began on a night that seemed ordinary at first. The sky was heavy with clouds, and a soft wind moved through the empty streets, carrying with it the faint smell of rain. Era had just finished her day, the kind of day where nothing special happened, and she was ready to rest. But even in those quiet moments, she sometimes felt a strange tension, as if the world around her was holding its breath. That night, it wasn't just her imagination. Something was different, though she couldn't put her finger on it. She sat near her window, watching the streetlights flicker in the distance. There was something calming about the dim light, the way it reflected on the wet pavement. Her room was small but cozy, with stacks of old books lining the shelves and a small plant by the window that she had cared for carefully. Yet, despite the comfort of her surroundings, she felt a pull toward the outside, a curiosity she couldn't explain. It started with a dream so vivid that she remembered every detail even after waking. In it, she was standing in a place she didn't recognize, vast, open, and glowing with soft blue light. Strange symbols floated around her, moving in patterns that seemed almost alive. At first, they frightened her, but then a sense of familiarity washed over her. She didn't understand why, but the shapes felt right, almost as if she had seen them before, though she knew she hadn't. The next day, she tried to dismiss it as just a dream, the mind's way of playing tricks when it was tired. But the memory lingered, itching at the edges of her consciousness. She found herself sketching the symbols in a notebook, copying them as best as she could. Each stroke felt deliberate, as if her hand knew exactly what to do, even when her mind did not. It was a strange feeling, like following instructions from a voice, only she could hear. That evening, the air was different. The sky was darker, the clouds heavier, and the wind stronger. Era felt a pull she couldn't resist. Without knowing why, she stepped outside, the gravel crunching softly under her feet. She walked toward the edge of her neighborhood, drawn by a faint, almost musical hum. It wasn't loud, but it filled her ears and seemed to guide her, like a gentle hand on her shoulder. As she reached the old abandoned well at the far end of the street, she froze. There, bathed in soft blue light, was a figure unlike anything she had ever seen. Tall and silent, the being stood perfectly still, holding a long staff that seemed to shimmer with energy. Its skin glowed faintly, pale yet radiant, and its eyes, though she couldn't tell their color, held a depth that made her heart beat faster. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Era felt a mix of fear and curiosity, a strange connection she couldn't explain. It was as if they recognized each other from somewhere long ago, from a time she didn't even know existed. She wanted to speak, to ask questions, but no words came out. The air around her felt charged, as if the world itself was waiting for something to happen. Then, slowly, the figure raised its staff. The movement was deliberate, careful, almost ceremonial. Era felt her pulse quicken. The staff wasn't threatening, but it was powerful, like it held the weight of centuries. The being's gaze never left hers, and she realized that whatever this was, it wasn't just an ordinary encounter. She was not looking at a stranger. She was looking at something ancient, something that had waited a long time to be seen again. Her heart pounded in her chest, but she felt a strange calm at the same time. It was a calm born from curiosity, the kind that pushes people to explore the unknown, even when they are afraid. She took a cautious step forward, then another. Each step felt like crossing a boundary she hadn't known existed. And then, without thinking, she spoke. The words that came out were not in any language she had studied. They were old, strange, and flowing, yet they felt natural, like breathing. Her voice was soft but firm, and the sound echoed slightly in the quiet night. She didn't know what she was saying, but the figure responded immediately. The alien priest froze, his eyes widening as if he had just heard something thought impossible. Slowly, almost reverently, he lowered his staff, then dropped it to the ground. The sound it made was hollow, echoing slightly in the still night air. Ira blinked, unsure if she had imagined it. The figure whispered something she couldn't understand, a soft murmur that carried weight and wonder all at once. And yet, even though the words were foreign, she could feel their meaning. There was awe, fear, and recognition in them. Something she had spoken had reached him in a way nothing else could. The moment stretched, timeless and fragile. Era didn't move, didn't speak. She just watched, feeling a mixture of excitement and fear. She realized that she had stumbled into something far larger than herself, something that had been waiting for this moment for centuries. The well behind the figure glowed faintly, as if the earth itself was acknowledging what had just happened. She wanted to ask questions, but words failed her again. Instead, she reached out her hand, almost instinctively, and the figure mirrored her movement. It was a silent acknowledgement, a recognition that they were somehow connected, bound by something ancient and powerful. For the first time, Ara understood that her life would never be ordinary again. As the night deepened, the wind died down, leaving a heavy silence. The world felt paused, like it was holding its breath. Era knew she had to understand what was happening, to uncover why this being had appeared to her, and why she could speak in a language no one else knew. But for now, she simply watched, mesmerized by the glow of the well, the figure, and the strange sense of destiny that had found her in the middle of an ordinary night. She stayed there for what felt like hours, though in reality it might have been only minutes. The first encounter had ended, but the story had only just begun. Her life had changed in ways she could not yet understand. And as she finally turned back toward her home, she carried with her a feeling of awe, a sense of purpose, and a whisper of an ancient secret that had chosen her. From that night on, nothing about her life would feel ordinary again. The dreams would continue, the symbols would appear in unexpected places, and the pull toward the unknown would grow stronger. Era was now part of something much larger than herself, a story that spanned worlds, time, and civilizations long forgotten. And she was ready, even if she didn't fully realize it yet. The night ended quietly, but the memory of that glowing figure, the dropped staff, and the language she didn't know she could speak lingered with her. It followed her into her dreams, into her thoughts, and into the deep, uncharted spaces of her imagination. That was the night her ordinary life quietly ended, and the adventure, the unimaginable journey into something ancient and forgotten, quietly began. The next day, Era woke up with a lingering sense of wonder and unease. She could still feel the weight of the encounter pressing gently against her mind, like a whisper that refused to fade. The memory of the blue light, the strange figure, and the language that had flowed naturally from her lips haunted her. Every time she tried to dismiss it as a dream, her heart would beat faster, reminding her that it had been real. She spent the morning quietly, avoiding her usual routine. Even the familiar comfort of breakfast felt dull compared to the excitement that lingered from the night before. Her mind kept wandering back to the abandoned well, the glowing light, and the figure who had stared at her with such intensity. She couldn't explain why, but she felt connected to him, as if they had known each other far longer than a single encounter could allow. By the afternoon, curiosity overcame her hesitation. She felt an almost irresistible pull to go back to the well. It was the kind of pull that made no logical sense, but carried the weight of destiny. Grabbing a light jacket and her notebook, she stepped outside, the evening breeze brushing against her face. The streets were quiet, shadows stretching long and dark across the pavement. Each step toward the well felt heavier, as if the night itself was waiting to see what would happen next. When she arrived, she saw him again, the alien priest. He stood near the well, motionless, his staff clutched lightly in one hand. The glow around him was softer than the night before, more subtle, but it still carried a strange, undeniable power. This time, he did not raise his staff immediately. Instead, he seemed to be observing her, as though he had been expecting her. Era felt a strange comfort in his presence, even though her rational mind screamed caution dot as she stepped closer. The same melodic hum she had noticed before began again, soft and resonant. It filled her ears, wrapping around her thoughts and emotions, stirring feelings she didn't fully understand. She opened her mouth to speak, and the words came out naturally, as if they had been waiting inside her all along. The language was strange, ancient, flowing in patterns that were almost musical. But for her, it was effortless. The alien priest froze again, his eyes widening in disbelief. The moment she finished a single sentence, he slowly lowered his staff, then dropped it completely to the ground. The metallic sound echoed softly, and Era could see the tremor in his hands, a subtle shake that revealed his shock. She didn't understand why he reacted this way, but she could feel the weight of his astonishment. Something about her words had touched him deeply, in ways beyond explanation. For a long while, neither of them spoke. The hum continued, mingling with the gentle rustle of the evening wind. Era felt a strange calm settle over her, a sense of understanding that went beyond words. She realized that this being was not dangerous. In fact, he seemed almost vulnerable, as though her knowledge of the language had awakened something he hadn't encountered in countless years. Finally, he whispered. The words were soft, almost too quiet to hear, yet they carried a weight that made Era's heart leap. She couldn't understand the language, but she could feel the meaning. There was awe, reverence, and fear all wrapped together. He spoke slowly, carefully, and each word seemed to reach into her very soul. The ancient being was acknowledging her in a way no human, or perhaps no one else in the universe, ever had before. The alien priest gestured toward the well. At first, Ira thought he wanted her to come closer, but then she realized it was more than that. The well itself seemed to react to her presence, faintly glowing as if it recognized her. The hum grew louder, resonating through the ground beneath her feet. She felt vibrations in her chest, subtle but insistent, as though the earth itself was alive and aware of what was happening. She wanted to ask questions, to demand answers, but no words came to her mind in English. Instead, she spoke again in the same ancient language, her sentences flowing naturally, carrying meaning she could only sense but not fully comprehend. The alien priest's expression changed slowly, from shock to awe to something like relief. It was clear that he had not expected this, and perhaps had never thought it would happen at all. As the conversation continued, fragments of images appeared in Era's mind. She saw distant landscapes filled with enormous structures and glowing symbols. Temples and towers she had never seen on Earth. She felt a connection to these places, a strange familiarity that both comforted and terrified her. Were these memories her own, or was she somehow tapping into the experiences of another being? The thought made her shiver, but she spoke on, guided by instinct and some unknown knowledge. The alien priest seemed to understand the questions forming in her mind before she even spoke them. He moved slowly, carefully, as though revealing too much too quickly could be dangerous. He told her, again in whispers, that the language she spoke had been lost for thousands of years. It belonged to a civilization that had once guided countless worlds, but had vanished long ago, leaving only fragments of their knowledge behind. To hear it spoken again was more than a shock, it was nearly a miracle. Era felt a wave of responsibility wash over her. She realized that her ability to speak this language was not random. It had purpose, though she couldn't yet understand what that purpose was. She was no longer just a bystander in her own life. Somehow, she had been chosen to play a role in something vast, something that stretched far beyond the boundaries of Earth. As the evening deepened, The alien priest stepped closer, his gaze steady and intense. There was a moment of silence, and then he whispered words that Era could almost but not entirely understand. She felt the weight of their meaning pressing against her mind. Warning, hope, and guidance all intertwined. He was giving her a message, but it was incomplete. He could not speak it fully, and somehow he needed her to finish it. The hum around them grew louder, vibrating through the air and the ground alike. Era felt her heartbeat quicken. Something was responding to her presence, to the language she spoke. The symbols she had drawn in her notebook days before began to make sense in a way that startled her. They seemed to pulse in rhythm with the hum, forming patterns she instinctively recognized. She realized that the knowledge was not just in her words, it was in her very being. Time seemed to stretch and bend around them. Minutes could have been hours, or hours could have been minutes. She couldn't tell. The world outside the well felt distant and irrelevant. Nothing mattered except the glowing light, the alien priest, and the flow of language that connected them. She was part of something older than the earth itself, a story written across the stars and now speaking through her. For a moment, fear rose in her chest. Could she handle this? Could a human truly bear the weight of knowledge that had been lost for millennia? But then a calm washed over her, stronger than the fear. She had the gift, and it was hers to use. She didn't fully understand the language yet, nor the extent of her ability, but she knew she had been chosen for a reason. The alien priest's gaze reinforced this truth. He believed in her, more than anyone else ever had. She spoke again, carefully forming the words that came naturally to her. And each time, the priest's expression shifted. Shock gave way to understanding, understanding to relief, and relief to hope. It was clear that what she said mattered, that her voice carried power, knowledge, and the potential to change more than just one life. More than just one world. The well continued to glow faintly, as if acknowledging her role. The air vibrated with energy, soft at first, but building steadily, like the hum of a distant star. Era felt herself becoming part of a story much larger than her own life. A story written in languages long forgotten, in civilizations long gone, yet somehow still alive through her. By the time she finally stepped away from the well, the night had grown deep and quiet. The alien priest remained where he stood, his figure illuminated by the soft glow. She knew she would return. She didn't yet understand why, nor did she know what awaited her, but something inside her knew she could not ignore this calling. The night had changed her, and she was aware that life would never feel ordinary again. The encounter left her with more questions than answers, but also with a sense of purpose and wonder she had never experienced before. She had touched something ancient and powerful, and in doing so, she had begun a journey that would take her far beyond the world she had always known. And though she did not yet understand the full meaning of her gift, she knew one thing for certain. She had spoken, and the universe had listened. Era could hardly sleep that night. Her mind kept replaying the encounter with the alien priest, the glowing well, and the strange language that had poured from her lips without effort. She lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of something she could neither name nor understand. There was excitement, yes, but also a quiet fear. She knew, deep down, that her life had changed forever. The next day, she returned to the well before sunset. The priest was there, waiting, standing silently as though he had never moved from that spot. The glow around him was subtle, almost serene, but it carried an unmistakable energy. He did not raise his staff this time. Instead, he simply looked at her, his eyes full of something she could almost recognize as relief. Era approached cautiously, her notebook clutched tightly in her hands. She felt the hum in the air again, soft but insistent, like a pulse beneath her skin. It seemed to respond to her presence, growing slightly as she came closer. The alien priest opened his mouth, speaking slowly in his melodic tones. This time, she understood a little more, not with her ears, but with her mind. Words were forming in her thoughts, carrying meaning even when she could not say them aloud. He told her that the language she spoke was not just words. It was memory, history, and wisdom wrapped into sound. It belonged to a civilization that had once guided countless worlds, teaching knowledge of harmony, energy, and the balance between life and the stars. That civilization had disappeared thousands of years ago, leaving almost nothing behind. The language, he explained, had been lost, locked away, and no one had been able to speak it for centuries, until now. Hera felt a shiver run down her spine. She had not expected her voice to carry such importance. She had only been speaking instinctively, following a strange inner rhythm that she did not fully understand. Yet now, listening to the priest, she realized her gift, or perhaps her destiny, was far larger than she could have imagined. He stepped closer and gestured toward the well again. This time, the glow around it was brighter, reflecting in his eyes as he spoke. He told her that the well was not just a well, it was a relic of that ancient civilization, a conduit of energy that connected worlds. Only one who could speak their language could activate it. And now, because she had spoken, the connection had begun to stir. Ira's mind reeled. Worlds beyond Earth? A civilization lost to time? It was almost too much to believe. But when she looked at the priest, she knew he was sincere. The reverence in his tone, the careful way he moved, the intensity of his gaze, all of it told her this was real. She wanted to ask how it was possible, how she could know something she had never studied, but the words seemed too small, too ordinary for what she was trying to understand. He knelt for a moment, as if paying respect to something unseen, and whispered words she could almost understand. He spoke of the chosen echo, a person mentioned in their records, a being who could carry the last living memory of the language across worlds. He explained that the chosen echo was said to appear when the balance between civilizations hung by a thread. That person's voice could awaken the knowledge of the ancients, bridging gaps that had been thought impossible to cross. Hera felt her stomach tighten. Could it be her? The thought seemed impossible. She was just a human, living a quiet, ordinary life. And now she was standing here being told that she might be the key to something that spanned worlds and centuries. Yet a part of her, deep inside, felt an undeniable truth. She had spoken the words, and the priest had reacted as though something long thought lost had been found. It was proof enough. The alien priest rose and began moving slowly around the well, his movements deliberate, careful. He seemed to be assessing the energy, feeling it, measuring it. Hera watched him, fascinated, feeling the same hum in her chest that had been there before. It grew stronger as she focused, as though her attention alone could shape the flow of the energy around them. The priest's gaze kept returning to her, as though he was waiting for confirmation, waiting for her to understand her role. He began to speak again, slowly, each word carrying weight. He told her that the civilization had left behind messages and tools, but only someone who could speak the language could interpret them correctly. They had tried to preserve their knowledge, but time and cosmic events had scattered it, leaving only fragments. Now she had the ability to read, understand, and perhaps even restore what had been lost. Hera felt both awe and fear. Could she do this? Could she truly carry the memory of an entire civilization in her mind, speak the language, and understand what it wanted her to do? The thought was overwhelming, but a quiet determination grew inside her. She realized that she could not ignore this. This was not just a gift, it was a responsibility. The priest's voice softened, almost to a whisper, and he spoke of the dangers as well. He warned her that knowledge was powerful and that it could be misused. There were others, he said, across worlds who would seek to control what she now carried. The language, the memory, the energy, they could all become tools for harm if they fell into the wrong hands. But with care and wisdom, she could preserve it, guide it, and perhaps even prevent disaster. Era listened intently, absorbing every word. She felt the magnitude of what lay before her. It was as if her ordinary life had been a preparation, a quiet training ground, leading her to this moment where everything she had learned in life would matter in ways she couldn't yet imagine. She understood that she had to focus, to master the language, and to follow the guidance of the priest, who clearly knew more than he could reveal all at once. The alien priest then reached into a pouch at his side and pulled out a small, glowing object. It was a crystal, faintly pulsating with the same soft light that surrounded the well. He held it out to her. She felt a tug in her chest, an unexplainable pull that made her reach for it instinctively. The moment her fingers touched it, visions flashed through her mind temples. Towers, floating islands, glowing symbols, and beings she had never seen before. The images were overwhelming, yet strangely familiar, as though she had known them before. The priest spoke while the visions continued. He said that the crystal was a memory vessel, a piece of the civilization's knowledge encoded into physical form. Only someone who could speak their language could unlock it, interpret it, and use it. He told her that she had the ability to awaken its power, to understand what had been lost, and to carry it forward. The responsibility weighed heavily on her, but it also sparked a strange joy, a sense of purpose she had never felt before. Hours passed as they stood near the well, speaking and listening, communicating through the ancient language and the quiet understanding that existed between them. Era felt herself growing, not just in knowledge, but in confidence. She realized that she was capable of more than she had ever imagined. The fear that had gripped her at first was still there, but it was tempered by a growing strength, the knowledge that she was part of something larger, something extraordinary. The alien priest finally lowered his gaze and nodded. He told her that the first step had been taken. Her voice had awakened what had long been dormant. The crystal, the well, and the energy around them were all responding. She had begun a journey that would take her far beyond the world she knew. And though the road ahead was uncertain, dangerous, and full of challenges, she had already proven that she could face it. Era stepped back from the well, feeling the weight of the night pressing gently against her shoulders. The hum in the air softened, the glow dimmed slightly, and the priest's presence remained steady and reassuring. She realized that she had only just begun to understand her place in this vast, ancient story. But she also knew that she could not turn back. She had been chosen, and now it was her responsibility to follow where the language, the crystal, and the priest would guide her as she walked home under the night sky. Era felt a mixture of awe, excitement, and determination. The world felt both familiar and entirely new, as if she were seeing it for the first time through eyes that had been opened to something extraordinary. She knew that the coming days would bring challenges, revelations, and discoveries unlike anything she had ever experienced. And deep inside, she carried the quiet certainty that she was no longer alone, that her voice, her gift, and her destiny were connected to something far greater than herself. That night, as she lay in bed, she held the crystal close, feeling its gentle warmth and soft light. Her mind replayed the priest's words, the visions, and the language that had awakened within her. Sleep came slowly, but when it did, it was filled with dreams that were vivid, strange, and yet comforting. She saw distant worlds, ancient temples, and glowing symbols, all pieces of a story she had only just begun to uncover. And somewhere in the quiet night, the well remained, glowing softly, waiting for the next step, the next word, and the next choice in a journey that had begun long before she had ever been born. and that would continue far beyond the boundaries of her life on Earth. The next morning, Era woke to a strange feeling. It was not fear, but a quiet urgency, a sense that something inside her was stirring and demanding attention. The dreams from the night before lingered in her mind, fragments of distant places, glowing symbols, and voices that seemed to echo through time. She could still feel the warmth of the crystal in her hand, the gentle hum that had connected her to the alien priest and the forgotten language. It felt alive, like a small pulse at the center of her being, reminding her that the world she knew was only the beginning. She dressed quickly and went outside, her feet carrying her almost instinctively toward the abandoned well. The streets were still quiet, the early morning sun casting long shadows across the pavement. As she approached, she saw the priest waiting, just as he had every time she returned. He did not speak immediately. Instead, he watched her with the same intensity, as if he were measuring her readiness for what was about to unfold. The moment she stepped closer, she felt it again, the soft vibration in the air, the faint hum that seemed to respond to her presence. This time, however, it was stronger. It resonated not only around her, but within her, filling her chest, her mind, and even her fingertips. It was as if the well, the crystal, and the priest were all waiting for her to awaken something long buried inside her dot. She spoke in the ancient language, carefully as she had before. But now, as the words flowed from her lips, something unusual happened. Memories began to surface, though they were not hers, or at least, not entirely hers. She saw massive structures carved from stone, towering spires with glowing symbols etched into their walls. She walked through halls that seemed impossibly vast, filled with beings she did not recognize, yet somehow felt familiar. It was overwhelming, and at first she could not tell if these images were real memories or visions, or if her mind was simply conjuring them. The alien priest watched her closely, nodding slowly as if confirming something he already knew. He spoke softly, in the melodic tones of his language, and she understood more of his words than before. He explained that what she was experiencing were fragments of memory passed down through the language itself. This was the gift of the chosen echo. The civilization that had vanished had encoded parts of its history, knowledge, and experiences into the structure of their language. And now, through her voice, those memories were awakening. Era tried to focus. The visions came quickly, each more vivid than the last. She saw planets with glowing oceans, cities suspended in the air, and beings that moved with grace and precision, unlike anything she had ever witnessed. There were moments of beauty that took her breath away, and moments of destruction that made her stomach tighten. She began to understand the scale of what had existed long before. Humans walked the earth. The priest placed a hand gently on her shoulder. His touch was light, but it anchored her. "Do not be afraid," he whispered. Though the words were in his language, they resonated with understanding. "These are the memories you are meant to carry. They are part of you now. Learn from them. They will guide you." Era nodded, feeling a strange sense of calm amidst the chaos of images in her mind. She realized that she was not seeing the past merely as an observer. She was living it in fragments, feeling the emotions, sensing the energy, and understanding the intentions of those who had come before. Each vision carried a lesson, a warning, or a fragment of wisdom. She began to grasp that this was why she had been chosen, because someone needed to remember what had been forgotten. Hours passed as she stood there, moving through visions and fragments of memory. She felt herself becoming more connected to the language, to the priest, and to the history that had been lost. Each word she spoke, each symbol she traced in her notebook, seemed to deepen her understanding. She began to realize that her voice was more than communication. It was a bridge between times, between civilizations, and between worlds. The priest guided her gently. helping her focus on one fragment at a time. He showed her that rushing through the memories could be dangerous. Some of them were powerful, containing energy that could overwhelm her if she were not careful. She had to pace herself, to let each memory settle into her mind and body before moving to the next. The process was exhausting but exhilarating. She felt herself growing, expanding, becoming something more than she had ever imagined. Not as the sun moved higher in the sky, Era began to notice changes in her perception. She could feel the energy in the air more keenly, notice subtle shifts in the wind, and sense vibrations in the ground beneath her feet. It was as though the world itself was alive and responding to her presence. The priest explained that this sensitivity was part of the gift of the chosen echo. It allowed her to perceive connections that others could not, to sense energy flows, and to understand the intentions of beings and objects around her. The visions became more specific, more personal. She saw herself in places she had never been, interacting with beings she did not know. Yet in these visions, she felt a sense of purpose and clarity. She understood actions she had yet to take, decisions she would need to make, and responsibilities that would fall upon her shoulders. It was as if the civilization had anticipated her arrival and prepared guidance, encoded in their language, to awaken at the right moment. The priest spoke of a message that had been lost to time, a warning that had never reached the worlds it was meant to protect. He told her that she had the power to complete it, to speak it fully, and to ensure that its lessons were preserved. But it would not be easy. The process would challenge her understanding, her courage, and her resolve. There were dangers that she could not yet see, forces that would seek to prevent her from fulfilling her purpose. Despite the weight of the responsibility, Era felt determination rising within her. She realized that fear could not stop her, nor could uncertainty. She had been given a gift, and with it came the obligation to act. She felt a quiet confidence, strengthened by the priest's guidance and by the clarity that came from experiencing the memories firsthand. She understood that she was ready to face the challenges ahead. Even if she did not yet know what form they would take, the day began to fade, and the glow around the well intensified slightly, as if sensing her progress. The priest gestured toward the crystal again, encouraging her to focus on its energy. As she held it, visions flowed more freely, showing connections between civilizations, planets, and times that she had never imagined possible. She saw patterns in the language, ways in which words, sounds, and symbols had been used to encode knowledge, history, and emotion. Each piece of understanding brought her closer to her purpose. As the night approached, Era realized that she had begun to integrate the memories into her own consciousness. They no longer felt foreign or distant. She understood, even if partially, the wisdom, culture, and intentions of the lost civilization. She felt their hopes, their fears, and their desire to be remembered. And she understood that she was the one who would carry their legacy forward, the one who would bridge the past and the present, the known and the forgotten. The priest stepped back, observing her quietly. He nodded slowly, his expression one of approval and pride. He told her that she had taken the first significant step in awakening her full potential. The journey ahead would be long, filled with discovery, challenge, and growth. But she had already proven herself capable of facing what was required. Era walked away from the well slowly, feeling the hum of energy gently fading into the quiet night. Her mind was alive with images, symbols, and sounds, but she felt a sense of harmony she had not felt before. She understood that she was no longer just a human standing on Earth. She was part of something greater, connected to a history that stretched beyond her comprehension, and entrusted with a role that could shape the future of worlds. That night, as she lay in bed, the memories and visions replayed in her dreams, but now with clarity and purpose. She saw the temples, the towers, and the glowing symbols again, but she also saw herself walking among them, understanding, learning, and guiding. She felt the presence of the priest, the crystal, and the ancient civilization, all working together to awaken the chosen echo within her. Era understood that the process had only begun. The memories were fragments, pieces of a larger puzzle she had yet to complete. But she also knew that she was ready. The gift she had received, the language she could speak, and the visions she could access were all tools she would need to navigate the journey ahead. And though the road would be long and filled with unknown challenges, she felt a quiet certainty that she could succeed, that she could fulfill the purpose that had chosen her long before she was born. She closed her eyes, letting the vision settle into her mind. She felt connected to the language, to the priest, to the civilization, and to the energy that flowed through the well, the crystal, and her own being. She knew that she would return to the well again, that she would continue to explore the memories, and that she would unlock the full potential of the gift she had been given. And she welcomed it with courage, determination, and a growing sense of wonder at the extraordinary journey that had only just begun. The morning air was heavy with anticipation. Era woke with a feeling she could not explain, a vibration in her chest, like something inside her was stirring. It was stronger than the hum she had felt at the well or in the crystal. It pulsed, with purpose, a subtle rhythm that seemed to call her toward the unknown. She knew she had to return to the well. There was something waiting for her, something that needed her voice and her understanding. As she walked toward the well, her steps were quiet but purposeful. The streets were empty, and the morning sun had not yet fully risen. Shadows stretched across the pavement, and the world felt unusually still, as if it were holding its breath for what was about to unfold. When she arrived, the alien priest was already there, standing silently beside the glowing well. His staff was in hand this time, but he did not raise it immediately. He simply watched her, and she felt a strange comfort in his calm presence. The hum around them was stronger than ever, vibrating through the air and ground alike. Era felt it deep in her chest, resonating with her heartbeat. It was as if the energy itself was alive, waiting for her to take the next step. She held the crystal tightly in her hand, feeling the warmth and gentle pulse that had guided her through previous visions. But today, the sensation was different. There was urgency in the energy, a sense that something critical was about to happen. The priest spoke first, slowly and deliberately. His words were soft, melodic, but Era felt them not with her ears, but with her mind. He told her that she had reached a pivotal point in her journey. The language she could speak, the memories she had accessed, and the visions she had seen were only part of what she was meant to understand. There was a message, a warning, and guidance combined that had been lost for centuries. It was incomplete, fragmented, but it needed her to finish it. Ira's heart raced. The thought of completing a message left by an ancient civilization across worlds was overwhelming. She was just a human, after all, and yet she could feel the weight of responsibility pressing gently but insistently on her shoulders. She realized that her voice, her gift, and her ability to understand the language were essential for something far larger than herself. This message could prevent disaster, save lives, and restore knowledge long thought lost. The priest gestured toward the well and the crystal. "The message begins here," he said in his soft tones, "but it is not complete. You must finish it. You are the chosen echo. Only your voice can awaken the remainder and make the warning whole." Era nodded, though fear fluttered in her chest. She did not fully understand how she could do it, but she trusted him. She knew she had come too far to turn back. She took a deep breath and began to speak in the ancient language, her voice steady despite the tremor of uncertainty inside her. Words flowed naturally, as they always had, forming sentences and meanings she could barely comprehend, but somehow understood in her core. As she spoke, the glow around the well intensified, pulsing with each syllable. Symbols appeared in the air, faint at first, then brighter, forming patterns she recognized from her visions. The alien priest watched closely, his eyes wide with awe and focus. Every time she spoke a new word, the energy around them shifted, vibrating more strongly, reaching further into the surroundings. The hum became louder, reverberating through the ground, the walls of the well, and even through Era's body. She could feel the power of the message stirring, the incomplete knowledge of a lost civilization seeking completion through her voice. Suddenly, a flash of light shot up from the well, startling her. The air grew warmer, tingling against her skin. The crystal in her hand pulsed more rapidly, and the priest raised his staff, though he did not interfere. Instead, he guided her silently, his calm presence giving her confidence as the energy built around them. She realized that this was more than just speaking. It was awakening something. It was bridging time, space, and understanding. The visions returned, faster and clearer than ever. She saw planets in turmoil, worlds at risk, and civilizations struggling against forces she could not yet name. She saw leaders and scholars of the ancient race working tirelessly to protect knowledge, leaving messages that could endure the passing of centuries. And at the center of all this was her voice, completing what had been left undone, allowing the warning and guidance to reach across worlds. Ira's mind struggled to keep up with the flood of images and sounds. It was overwhelming, almost too much to bear. She felt exhaustion clawing at her limbs and thoughts, yet she pushed forward, speaking the words as they came, letting the language guide her rather than trying to control it. The priest's eyes remained fixed on her, encouraging her silently, reminding her that she could succeed. The hum and glow reached a crescendo, and for a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Then, a tremor shook the ground beneath them. A faint vibration ran up her legs and through the soles of her feet, as if the well itself had come alive. Era realized that the message was not just words. It was energy, power, and history combined. The ancient civilization had encoded its knowledge and warnings into a form that could survive time. Only if someone like her could awaken it fully. The priest whispered something she could barely understand, a word of encouragement, warning, and guidance all at once. She felt it in her mind, not her ears, a direct connection of meaning and intent. He reminded her to focus on the purpose, not the fear, and to trust the language that flowed from her lips. With renewed determination, she continued, finishing sentences and phrases that had once been incomplete, completing ideas that had waited for centuries to be spoken. As the words flowed, the glow from the well formed a ring, a luminous circle of energy that rose from the ground. Era realized that this was a doorway, a connection between worlds, a bridge that had been dormant until her voice reawakened it. The symbols around her shimmered and moved, forming patterns that told a story of guidance, warning, and hope. It was both beautiful and overwhelming, a tapestry of knowledge that stretched beyond her imagination. The tremor beneath her feet grew slightly stronger, and she sensed that time itself had become fluid. Past, present, and future seemed to merge in the glow of the well, and she understood instinctively that she was standing at a pivotal moment. The energy around her responded to her intent, her voice, and her understanding, acknowledging her as the one capable of completing what had long been unfinished. Era felt a wave of fear, but it was tempered by the knowledge that she could not fail. She had been chosen, prepared, and guided to this moment. The priest remained silent but vigilant, his calm presence reminding her that she was capable. She felt the weight of responsibility in her chest, but alongside it came strength, clarity, and a sense of purpose stronger than anything she had ever known. The well's glow brightened, enveloping her in warmth and light. Symbols and visions danced before her eyes, showing events yet to come, lessons to be learned, and the impact of her voice. She could see what might happen if the message remained. Incomplete chaos, misunderstanding, and disaster across worlds. But she also saw what could happen if she succeeded: protection, knowledge, and the survival of civilizations long thought lost. With every word she spoke, she felt herself merging with the message, becoming part of the energy and history she had awakened. Her voice was no longer just human. It carried the power, intent, and wisdom of the ancient civilization. The hum grew louder, resonating with her heartbeat, connecting her to the priest, the crystal, and the well. She understood that her journey was not merely about speaking words. It was about embodying their meaning, understanding their purpose, and bringing them to life. As she reached the final phrases, the energy surged. A ring of light formed fully around the well, glowing with a soft but undeniable power. Symbols floated within it, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. The priest stepped back, lowering his staff in reverence, and whispered words of awe and approval. The message was complete. The warning had been delivered, the knowledge restored, and the bridge between worlds activated. Era felt a sudden release of tension, exhaustion, and anticipation. The energy around her softened. The hum became gentle. Again, and the glow of the well dimmed slightly, though it continued to radiate warmth and presence. She realized that she had done it. She had completed what had been left unfinished for centuries. She had fulfilled her role as the chosen echo dot. As she stood there, breathing deeply, the priest approached and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You have done what no one else could," he whispered, his voice carrying a mixture of reverence, relief, and awe. "The message is whole. The bridge is open. You have awakened what was lost and prepared the path for what must come next." Era smiled, feeling a mixture of pride, relief, and wonder. She knew the journey was not over far from it. But she had taken a monumental step, one that would shape the course of events across worlds. The energy around her remained alive, a gentle reminder of what she had accomplished and what she had yet to learn. As she walked home later, the crystal still pulsing softly in her hand, she realized that she had changed. She was no longer the same person who had approached the well with curiosity and fear. She was stronger, wiser, and more certain of her purpose. She understood the weight of her gift and the responsibility that came with it. And though the road ahead the night had fallen, but the world felt different to Era. There was a quiet energy in the air, a subtle vibration that made the hairs on her arms stand on end. She held the crystal tightly, feeling its gentle pulse, as if it were alive and aware of her presence. Tonight, she knew, would be different. She could sense it in every sound, every shadow, every breath of wind. Something was waiting to be revealed, and she was ready. As she approached the well, the alien priest was already there, standing calmly beside it. His staff, which had often guided him, now rested lightly in his hand. He did not speak immediately, but nodded slightly as she came closer, acknowledging her readiness. The hum of the well was stronger than ever, resonating through the air and ground, vibrating softly within her chest. The crystal glowed brighter in her hand, casting a gentle light that seemed to reach toward the sky. Era stepped forward and spoke in the ancient language. This time, her voice carried something more than words. It carried understanding, power, and intention. The symbols around the well shimmered and began to shift, forming intricate patterns she had never seen before. They moved like living things, weaving together the fragments of the message she had completed the day before. She could feel the energy of the ancient civilization responding to her, acknowledging her role, and recognizing that the final step was at hand. The priest spoke softly, guiding her with subtle gestures and melodic tones. He explained that the bridge she had begun to awaken yesterday would now fully open, but it required courage. The portal was not just a gateway between places. It was a gateway between times, between worlds, and between understanding. She would be able to see and sense things beyond ordinary perception, and the experience could overwhelm someone unprepared. But she was ready, he said, because she had completed the message and embraced her gift. Ira nodded, taking a deep breath. Fear and excitement danced together in her chest, but determination held her steady. She stepped closer to the well, letting the crystal's glow guide her. The hum of energy grew louder, surrounding her entirely, and she felt the ground beneath her feet soften, as though she were standing on something not entirely solid. The symbols in the air spun faster, creating a luminous tunnel that seemed to stretch into infinity. The alien priest raised his staff slightly, and Era realized that this was the moment he had been preparing her for. She could feel the pull of the portal, a gentle tug that beckoned her forward, inviting her to step into something beyond her understanding. Her mind raced with questions. What would she see? Where would it take her? Could she return? But she also knew that hesitation was not an option. She had been chosen for this moment, and her voice, her understanding, and her courage were all needed now. With another deep breath, Era stepped forward. The air shimmered around her, and for a moment the world seemed to stretch and bend. Light and energy swirled in every direction, pulling at her senses, challenging her perception. She felt weightless yet grounded, seeing glimpses of places she had never visited and times she had never lived. The images were vivid, towering cities suspended in the air, glowing oceans, vast landscapes with impossible structures, and beings moving with grace and precision. She sensed that these were parts of the civilization she had been connecting with, now showing her the full scope of their knowledge and experience. The alien priest remained at the edge of the portal, his eyes steady on her, his presence a grounding force. He whispered guidance, reminding her to focus on understanding, not just observation. Era realized that she was not a mere witness. She was part of the energy, the story, and the knowledge. The portal was responding to her voice, her intention, and her connection with the ancient language. Each word she spoke, each thought she held, shaped the flow of energy around her dot as she moved further into the portal. Memories of the civilization became clearer. She saw leaders discussing critical decisions, scholars encoding knowledge into words and symbols, and everyday life on worlds that had vanished long ago. But she also saw warning signs, failures, conflicts, and dangers that had led to the civilization's disappearance. She understood that the message she had completed was not just a warning, but a guide, meant to prevent future disasters for those who would come after. Suddenly, a vision struck her with clarity. She saw herself, not just as a human on Earth, but as a bridge between civilizations, carrying knowledge across time and space. She realized that the responsibility was immense, but so was the opportunity. The gift she had received was not just about understanding the past. It was about shaping the future. She could guide, protect, and preserve what had been lost. And more than that, she could inspire others to recognize the value of knowledge, wisdom, and connection across worlds. The hum of the portal grew louder, resonating through her entire being. The crystal in her hand pulsed in harmony with the energy around her, and she felt a strange warmth, like a gentle embrace. The alien priest's voice reached her again, calm and steady, reminding her that the final choice lay in her hands. She could step fully through, embracing the unknown and the lessons it held, or she could step back, returning to the familiar world she had always known. Either choice would have consequences, but he trusted her to make the right decision. Era closed her eyes, letting the language, the visions, and the energy guide her. She understood that fear was natural, but it could not dictate her actions. Courage was not the absence of fear, it was moving forward despite it. She felt the weight of the message she had completed, the trust of the civilization, and the connection with the priest. All of it merged into a quiet certainty. She was ready. Taking a deep breath, she stepped fully into the portal. The world around her shifted entirely. Light, energy, and symbols surrounded her, flowing in patterns that were both overwhelming and beautiful. She felt herself lifted, as though floating between worlds and times. She could sense the civilization's intent, the hopes and fears of beings long gone, and the responsibility now placed upon her. It was dizzying, but she felt a profound connection, as if she were at the center of something eternal. The vision settled into a steady rhythm, showing her a world she had never known, a place of knowledge, wisdom, and harmony, but also of challenge and complexity. She saw paths she could take, decisions she would need to make, and consequences that would ripple across time. The message she had completed was active now, a living thread connecting past, present, and future. She understood that her voice had been the key, but her choices would shape the outcome. The alien priest's presence remained with her, though now more ethereal. He communicated not with words, but through understanding, guiding her through the vast energy and visions. He showed her that the chosen echo's role was not just to awaken the message, but to embody it, to carry it forward, and to ensure that it could serve its purpose in the hands of those who would come after dot hours seemed to pass. Though she could not measure time as she once had, every moment was filled with insight, discovery, and realization. She understood the depth of the civilization's wisdom and the gravity of their loss. She also felt the potential of what could be achieved now that she had awakened their knowledge. She could carry it back, teach, guide, and protect. And she could ensure that the mistakes of the past would not repeat. Finally, the energy of the portal began to calm. The symbols settled, the light softened, and the crystal in her hand glowed gently, as if acknowledging her understanding. She felt grounded again, connected to her own body and the world she had come from, but forever changed. She had stepped into something greater than herself, and had emerged not only unscathed, but enlightened. The alien priest stepped forward fully, smiling softly. He told her that she had fulfilled the final step of awakening the chosen echo. The bridge between worlds and civilizations was active. The message was complete, and the knowledge was preserved. But more than that, she had embraced her role with courage, understanding, and wisdom. She had proven herself worthy of the trust placed upon her long before she was born. Ere looked at the well, the crystal, and the soft glow surrounding them. She understood that her journey was only beginning. The knowledge she had awakened would continue to grow. The connections she had made would expand, and the responsibilities she carried would shape not just her life, but the lives of countless others across time and space. She felt a quiet joy, a sense of purpose, and a deep gratitude for the experience she had been given as she walked away from the well later that night. The streets quiet and the sky full of stars, she felt a profound peace. She was still human, still part of her world, but she was also something more, an embodiment of knowledge, a bridge between times, a guardian of wisdom. And though the future remained uncertain, she knew she was ready to face it, carrying with her the lessons, guidance, and power of the civilization that had chosen her voice to live again. For the first time in her life, Era felt truly whole. The portal had opened, the message had been completed, and the journey had transformed her. And though the story of the chosen echo was ancient, long forgotten, and yet newly awakened, she knew that she had found her place within it, a place that would continue to unfold, filled with discovery, wonder, and the infinite possibilities of what lay ahead.